Hey, good morning, guys, or afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. It's Sunday. Get the guns out there, boys and girls. It's going to be a great day. This is Dr. Rob, the Addiction Doctor, back with you with Breaking Through Addiction every Friday at noon Central Time. We'll have different guests on each week, and some of them are heavy hitters. That's all I can say about that. But watch out every single week. If you've got any comments or got any messages, you can email me. You can message me. If you've got anything for the guest, any questions that we want to ask her, do the same again. Just send me a message and we'll go through. It is Friday the 14th. I've got to tell you real quick, guys, I got stuck in England. So all my English guys that are listening, oh my God, I'm not too sure when I'm going to return to that country. They kept me there for 5 or 6 days. Mind you, we couldn't pass the COVID test. I was pretty sick, and so was Janet with COVID. But we got back safely about 3 or 4 days ago. We're settling in back to life in our beautiful home in San Antonio, Texas. So all good. So listen, I got Misty Sutherland that I spotted on Facebook some months ago. I don't know. I got so many friends. I've got like 5,000 friends, but this one stuck out. So I kind of followed her to find out what she was up to. And some of the stuff she's up to is pretty good. And the journey she's been on, she's a mum of 3. And she seemed absolutely awesome. She's beautiful, she's intelligent, and I think she's going to be going places. So listen through for that great story. And as promised before, Stephen Selly, who's a friend of mine down there in Florida, Boca Raton is where he lives, he's got a new single out, and we're going to play it right now. So Stephen Selly, most of you know who Stephen is out there, but listen, take a listen to this.
I'll be looking for you. Where you at? Love. Yo, this a mood. You know I wrote this for you. Crossing paths and tours. The feeling can't prove, but it's you. My dream came true. Hello, my angel. Yes, you the one I can't get enough. You directly connect me to God. A blessing from divine. Every time, so glad we aligned. Hello, my angel. I got us in the flesh. Skin so fresh, I wanna bite and caress. Hairs on the back of my neck. Stand up, get chills every time we touch. Hello, my angel. Hello. You're the only girl I see myself with. Only waves in sync, yeah, we make a great fit. Great feeling me with bliss every time we lock lips. And I think about you often, I just want to share the ride. I'm so grateful you're right here by my side. Here right now, is this real life? I don't even want to blink, let me sink it to them eyes, yeah. I couldn't feel more blessed. Every word coming straight from my chest. I know it's real, but it's feeling like a test. Manifested every detail, yet I'm still impressed. Don't do it. Oh God, in that dress. Headed out tonight, but I gotta confess. Rather take it to the crib, get you slowly undressed. Lay you down, get drowned in you, connect like getting deep in different levels. Feel it in my soul, nothing less than something special. It's a miracle in so many ways. That's why every time I say hello, my angel. Yes, you the one I can't get enough. You directly connect me to God. A blessing from divine. Every time, so glad we aligned. Hello, my angel. I got us in the flesh. Skin so fresh, I wanna bite and caress. Hairs on the back of my neck. Stand up, get chills every time we touch. Hello, my angel. Skin so fresh. Bite and caress. Get chills every time we touch. Yes, you the one I can't get enough. You directly connect me to God. My blessing from divine. Time so glad we alive. Hello, my angel. I got us in the flesh. Skin so fresh, I wanna bite and caress. Hairs on the back of my neck. Stand up, get chills every time we touch. Hello, my angel.
Unbelievable, guys, unbelievable. Stephen Selly. Stephen Selly with My Angel. There's engaged some acoustics in the background, which is awesome. There you go. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Stephen Selly, My Angel. Download it. Go to YouTube. Go to SoundCloud. And no doubt he's been on iTunes as well. Go down and download it. Great guy. Great song. Great music. And such an inspiration. He's actually a coach as well. Fitness coach and recovery coach and all that great stuff over there in Boca Raton. So give it a listen. There's the screen at the bottom there. Stephen Selly, My Angel. Okay, we're ready for our guest today. It's Misty Sutherland is actually on the show, and we'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back, guys. My name is Dr. Rob, the Addiction Doctor. This is Breaking Through Addiction every single week at Friday Central noon. Don't be calling me at 1 o'clock asking where the program is when you've missed it. Misty Sutherland is on the show. Good morning or afternoon.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm great. Good afternoon. I mean,
So it's
just
the first time we spoke face to face, kind of.
Look at my
What's your
shirt.
t-shirt, guys. Where'd you get your t-shirt from?
Sober is cool on Instagram because being sober is cool. Nice to meet you, Dr. Rob. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on. So I was telling the guys before that I kind of come across you on Facebook or vice versa, and I'm always looking for people that are striving for success, not monetary, or that will come obviously, but with oneself and doing the work and then helping others. And I was intrigued about what you were doing, and I wanted to know more about your journey. So thank you so much for coming on. Tell people about you. Tell them about what you do today. Tell them a bit about your family life, just so we can get to know you.
Okay. Well, again, my name is Misty Sutherland, and I'm from Oklahoma. Did make me all warm and fuzzy that you stalked me a little bit, Dr. Rob. I'm not going to lie. But pardon me. We did come across each other on Facebook, and I am from Oklahoma, and I'm a mom of 3. Have been a teacher for 22 years, and just quit in May. And so I've been struggling with addiction for about 16 years now, and so that's where I am.
So tell me about your addiction. Tell me where it started, what it was, first of all.
Okay. Well, you did little known fact about me, Dr. Rob. I was a watermelon queen. I have to throw this shameless plug in. I grew up in a small town that is known for the Watermelon Festival, and so I was a watermelon queen.
Nice.
And so grew up the baby of the family on a ranch, and had everything I ever needed. 2 parents that loved me, but I became a peacemaker early on. Just the normal family friction, but was given everything I needed from wonderful parents. And I was very close to my mom. My dad was a rancher. I was just like my mom, or a lot like my mom, I should say. But we were very close. And her death in 2005 altered my life quite a bit, and it just shook my world and turned me upside down. And so the grief of mom's death wreaked havoc on my life, and so that's when my addiction really began.
And what was your addiction? Was it drugs or alcohol?
Alcohol.
To excess, obviously.
Yes.
What is the alcoholism in the family?
Alcoholism does run in the family. My dad, I remember him telling me, he was a very smart rancher, but I remember him telling me years ago, be careful with addiction, sis. It runs in the family. And when I went to rehab, of course, I've studied more about addiction being a disease, which I thoroughly believe. And my dad knew this long before his time.
Wow. Awesome. Talk to me about your trauma, because every alcoholic has trauma.
Okay.
Mom's death must have been, horrific for you regarding that. But tell me what else growing up was
okay.
Wow, that's what it was.
Well, like I said, I grew up a very privileged, not wealthy by any means, but I mean, I had everything I wanted. Had 2 older sisters, had good parents, always knew that I was loved, had very much unconditional love for my parents. I married my high school sweetheart when I was 20 years old. And looking back now, I think maybe I married because it was what I was supposed to do. It was what was next in line, and I had said yes, and I didn't want to say no because I'd already said yes, and it would be okay, and I was raised in a very evangelical Christian background. And so I thought it'd be okay. And now at 52, when I look back and I think of my nonchalant attitude about getting married, it just makes me crazy. But I was married for 23 years and had 3 beautiful children from that marriage, and I'm super blessed. But my marriage was chaotic. It was chaotic, and it was crazy, and it was rough. And so we married in 1990, and we even separated several times, and anyway, my mom gets cancer, and she passes in 2005, and we were all gathered around her bedside, and with her when she died. And she'd suffered miserably, for about 5 years before. And I remember she'd gone into remission before, and she told everybody her story. She gave her testimony. She talked about how God had healed her. She went to Relay for Lives, and my mom was much more than just a mom for our figure. She was the spiritual, strong strong person, in our family. She was the one we ran to for prayer. She was the one we went to for our spiritual crisis also. And so I remember standing after everyone had left the room, and I stood there at the head of her bed, and I was just so angry at God. And I remember I never doubted that there was a God or his existence, but my attitude at that time was just like, I can do what I want. I don't need you. And so, and now I for years, I tried to downplay that as, well, that's very childish. It is childish, but that was how I felt, I mean, and for the next, I don't know, 12 years, I guess, I just rebelled against God, and I just lived wild and dangerously and reckless. And 2013, I finally got the nerve to get a divorce, which was hard. We've been married a long time, and got out 2015. And it was a year-long battle. It was a bitter divorce. It was terrible. 2015, my dad gets cancer, 2014 rather, and he passes away. And so here I am, youngest daughter of a rancher, and I'm the only one divorced, not married, didn't have a house, and so fortunately my dad, I bought a house as soon as my dad passed with his inheritance, which I've been so grateful for. And still my life was crazy, and this was in 2015. And so I'm just living dangerously, Dr. Rob. I mean, I look back now at the things that I did and the places that I put myself, and I was not suicidal ever. I was just like, fuck it, I can do it. Pardon. Oops, sorry. but I just had this. I can live for not even I can live forever. I was just testing God. I was testing God to see, because I did believe God was real, but He didn't answer prayer because He didn't heal my mom. And that was my mindset. And so 2015, my dad dies. I'm newly divorced, have a home, and but I'm still spiraling. I mean, I am absolutely spiraling. And so summer of 2017. I was involved just with the wrong people, and hit rock bottom, and get the infamous "Dear John, adios" text. We need to go to rehab. We need to get help. And I immediately got on my phone and picked it up, and Googled rehabs for alcoholism. And so here I am in Oklahoma. And so first thing I get was this Watershed rehab in Houston. And so actually it was in Florida. There was one in Florida, one in Houston. So I called my children, called my son in. I talked to everyone, and told them where I was going. And get to the airport in Oklahoma City, and I was crying the whole way, and I was so emotional. And get there, and I show her my ticket, and she said, "Oh, you're not going to Florida, you're going to Houston." And I was like, "Oh my gosh."
What?
Yes. Well, my insurance didn't pay for Florida, but I didn't realize, because this was my first time. Now, keep in mind, I have been a teacher for 22 years, and so I was very much a functioning alcoholic, And one of my biggest disservices to my children was I had taught them how to live this fake ass life, like everything was great, and mom and dad would scream and yell and fuss and fight, and then I'd wipe my tears and we would take off and we would go, and so that's how I'd lived my life. And so I didn't realize, my life was all together on the outside. And so I didn't realize that going to rehab, you're supposed to get drunk. Who knew? So on the plane.
Don't go sober.
Yes. And so on the plane, of course, this was before COVID, but on the plane, she asked if I wanted to drink. And I was like, no, I've already promised my kids, and so show up at rehab stone cold sober, And a funny story about rehab, Dr. Rob, which you will just laugh, but I had a big bottle of Benadryl. She took it, and I'm like, what? And then I had a big bottle of Norco. She took it too, which made me laugh. But, anyway, get checked into rehab, and I walked in there, and I remember looking at those people. It was in the evening, and they were all in the great room talking. And I just got my nails done. This is the funny part of the story. I had big, long American French nails on, and I had this Todd Hot pink Under Armour shirt on and a little white skirt. And all this is just a funny part of the story, because I walk in there, looking like I looked. And I remember thinking, I do not belong with these people, man. I've got to get out. Tomorrow, I'm going home. This is nuts. And as you know, because you're sitting there smugly looking at me, the next day I realized that they were no different than me. We were all just the same. And so anyway, I was at rehab for 35 days, and even went to the step down unit for 1 week, and I argued with them, but no, I did. And came home 35 days later, and I was vulnerable, and I was just raw, and I was vulnerable. I was good. I was sober. And I was on my way, man, and so I was working at the time at Lawton Public Schools over at Lawton, and they just put me in a 6th grade social studies position. Well, I was dreading it because I didn't like sixth grade. I had never taught social studies, But anyway, I go home and I kind of hide out in my little house in my little community, my little small town, and I was just healing. I started going to AA. I started going to yoga, doing the meditation because they tell you to do all that in rehab. And so September rolls around 2017, and I remember one day thinking, I really love my job. I'm in such a good spot. Life is so good. And October 10th, I got a phone call from my ex-husband on 2017, and we were not on good terms, not on speaking terms. And our oldest son, Tanner, at the time was 24. And so he had a horrible car accident. And he calls me at 11 o'clock, and I remember my thoughts were, well, I don't want to talk to him. And I hung up, and then he calls again, and I said, what? And he said, get your clothes on. I'm coming to pick you up. Tanner's had an accident. So rushed to Oklahoma City, which is an hour away from me. And my son had hit a tow truck going head on the front left of his brain. So he has what's called a TBI, traumatic brain injury. And so this is where my story gets interesting. Remember, go back to my mom, in 2005, and in rehab, I had gotten my life in order. I was sober, thank God for this, and I had rekindled my relationship with God. I'd worked on grief with my mother, grief with my father, things that I had not dealt with, thank goodness for that. But I remember that night in the waiting room, and we're waiting. They had to do a craniectomy, and they had to remove part of his skull. And so I remember, you talk about a desperate prayer, the one of a mother in the waiting room pleading for her son's life because no one had given him hope, 48 hours. And so I remember pacing the floors, just praying, just begging God, and he reminded me, I used to always say, I'm not scared of nothing. I mean, I'm not scared of nothing. And I've just always had that attitude, I was married to, whatever for 23 years, I went to Tijuana twice for surgery, I've lost my mom, I've lost my dad. I'm not scared of anything but losing a kid. And so that came back to my remembrance at that point. And so, and I hate to say vision because it makes me sound all hooky or whatever, but it's clear as day. I mean, I saw God on one side and Satan on the other. And so he was very clearly something was after my son, And so anyway, this is where the part gets good because it was like God just was going to show me, you think miracles can't take place? Watch. Because it was just like, boom, boom, just crazy stuff started happening in Tanner's life, in his healing, in our journey. And I remember just a few days in, we're standing over the ICU bed. My ex-husband's on one side and I'm on the other. And he looked up at me with tears in his face because Tanner was so bad. And he said, I don't know how you're doing this, not drinking. And I got it. I understood. And I said, I don't know how you're doing this drinking because I can't, because God knew I had to be very focused on where I was needed right then, And so anyway, I stayed sober for, I don't know. Well, let me go back. Tanner was at OU Medical Center for 35 days and didn't talk. He was fully in a coma that whole time. I was there. I left to go to him and my daughter Sydney's house back and forth at night. But I was there nonstop around the clock. Moved into a step-down unit called Valor and his rehab facility for 2 weeks. During that time, some freedom came, and because he was working more, they were working more with him, physical therapy and so forth. And so I went to a nail salon local, and I'll never forget. And here I am, I don't know, 100 days probably sober. I'd been to rehab in June, and so I sit down in that nail chair, and she said, "Oh, Misty, you want a glass of wine?" And I was like, "Oh, yes." And after the stress that I had been under, it was just like solved to my, I just don't know any, and so that's when it began, drink again, and what my therapist calls harm reduction, and so I drank for 4 years in this harm reduction phase, is what they call it, and came home with Tanner on December 9th, and even leveled up with my kids about later on, about I'm going to drink. I'm going to drink in moderation. And I want to be honest. I don't want to lie. I want to be honest with you guys about it. But I wasn't doing that. I wasn't drinking in moderation, But anyway, so I'm home. I'm dealing with Tanner. Life goes on, and God sends me a guy. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, he lives on the East Coast. And so I got certified in yoga in 2000, last January. And so we decided in February I was going to quit my teaching job. And 22 years.
Wow.
And so just knew it one night on the mat. I mean, one night in February, I just knew it was time for me to quit. And so May, I go to yoga and had this epiphany in class, on the mat, because find so much healing on the mat.
Yeah.
And I knew then what I was supposed to do. May 22nd, I remember the day. Misty, you need to get addiction for yoga. You need to get addiction training for yoga, addiction, grief, and I lost my train of thought, but get trained in this for yoga, and that way you can help people on the mat.
Yeah.
And so I get out in my car and I made this Facebook post, and man, my life is going places. I mean, I am on the right track. And so I found this place that I'm going to at Edmond, which is about an hour away, and it's an outpatient facility to deal with childhood trauma, and so, man, I'm making all the right steps, and so it was Sunday, June 13th, this last June, and I got up, ironically, the anniversary. You'll find this ironic of the last time I hit rock bottom, June 13th.
Wow.
Yes, exactly to the day. But anyway, I'm sitting there on my bed, and I'm going to meet my daughter that evening at 6 for sushi, and I went and did yoga outside, and I did some meditation, and then I drank a red Solo cup full of wine and sit there, and I hung up for a little bit longer and drank another glass and didn't think much about it. And next morning I woke up and that morning about 4, and I was in the Grady County Jail, and reality hit, and once the reality and the gravity of where I was at hit me, I remember I just felt such gratefulness. I just felt so grateful to think, number one, that I was alive, and number two, that I hadn't killed anyone, and that in my ignorance, that God had chased me down and that I was okay, and so it was just like the check engine light. Hey, you need to check here, and so anyway, I'm glad, because now, so the last 6 months, here we are today, is 2/16 sober. Thank you very much.
Wow.
And so this last 6 months, it's taken a different direction, than what I planned, but I've been actively working. I'm working the steps. I'm going to AA. I am working on my yoga, working on the mat, working on meditation. So I'm doing all the things now, and that's important.
That's absolutely awesome. Let me ask you a question, because a couple of things that I went through. I did a lot of bad stuff on the streets. I did a lot of bad stuff in the house. I stabbed my wife 3 times one night when she won't let me finish drinking. What was your worst moment, if you can mention it? And be brave and honest. What was your worst moment while you were in your disease?
My worst moment, probably, gosh, I can't even think of one moment, Dr. Rob. I think back at the times that I've been, I don't know, you caught me off guard, probably. You're talking about the actual moment when I was drunk. Probably
yes, or time, or but moment, if you can think.
Yeah, there's a song about the woman at the well that I should have had it written down, but it reminds me of her, because I'm looking down at that empty bottle and just trying to fill that void that was missing. I can't count the times that I've been in that position. And I have had weight loss surgery, so I drink to excess and I drink quickly, So, I'm a really good alcoholic, and I do it hard and fast, like I do everything in life. And so, probably just those down and out moments where I felt like that void can't be filled, Does that make sense? It does to you, But
yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Misty Sutherland is on the show, guys. Stick around. We'll be right back after this. Guys, welcome back. My name is Dr. Rob, the addiction doctor. I'm with Mr. Sutherland this week, and this is Breaking Through Addiction. And we talk about stories, we ask the questions that many people want to answer, but that's just the way it goes. So listen, talk to me about your abandonment issues when mom and dad passed, especially mom. How's that affected you in your adult life?
Well, who would think you would have such abandonment issues with the death of a parent? But you did, and I did, and I remember standing there again at that bed and just thinking, my kids were 12, 14, and 2, and I was in a mess. I was in chaos, and they were in chaos, and I remember looking at God and being like, I can't raise these kids on my own. How am I supposed to do this by myself? And I couldn't help them grieve, because I was dealing with my own grief myself. And again, I was a baby. I was spoiled. I mean, I was my mom's sidekick, and so it was extreme abandonment. And man, that abandonment really derailed my life. And then my dad. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
How did that show up though? Have you in relationships or anything like that? I mean, are you a needy person?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Yes.
Still?
Yes. I'm working on this.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm working on this. Yeah, and
Are
a
you
lot of
both-
that also comes from my marriage. I've noticed even years later, I still see the damage from that. I mean, I apologize a lot. I see lots of trauma signs, but I'm working through those.
So I look back to your marriage when you were still drinking. What was that was ended the marriage, or was it just growing apart, or was it a specific moment that ended that marriage?
We both drank together, and I don't know that I drank much before Mom passed, because I was too worried that Mom would have found out,
Yeah.
and then I would go to hell.
Yeah.
So, but no, we drank together, and
Yeah.
and as you know, alcohol, one thing led to another, and that only made things worse for both of us.
Just a quick shout out to Jeff Shea. Hey Jeff, thank you for just texting in real quick on the microphone. My loving wife has decided to have all wooden floors throughout the top of the house, and my office has got wooden floors now. So my voice bounces off every wall, and I keep saying to her, but we're back. Thanks a lot, Jeff. That's awesome. So most people miss when we go to treatment. They miss the family dynamics, the family system that we're very big on. So if the alcoholic is suffering, you need to work with the spouse, and you need to work with the kids over 18 that still live in the house. How important was your aftercare, and how are your children doing with that now?
Well, my aftercare, I worked on myself since rehab, and did personal growth, and I dealt with we were working with Tanner's recovery, and he's doing well. So it's not like I had been a drunken fool for the last 4 years. I mean, I had been actively working on myself. The biggest difference now is that's step number one, Dr. Rob. I mean, I am a control freak, and I'm fierce. I used to be fiercely independent, and I've had to give some of that up and just say, hey, I can't do it, and so that's the difference. The second time around is that I have surrendered and I've given up and I can't do it. Aftercare, I talk a lot to my kids about my addiction. I know they get tired of hearing about it, but it's part of who they are, and it's part of our life. My daughter and I are just now rebuilding our relationship, and
How old is your daughter?
my daughter's 30. She's a nurse.
30? Oh my goodness.
Yep, she's the best. Yep.
Wow.
And so she picked me up that day at the jail, and to say she was angry was an understatement. And a couple of days later, she sends me a text, and she took a break for six months to protect herself.
Good.
And we just now have started working through that. So I'm glad for that.
It's we always tell people that, of course, that especially usually, let's say it's the guy. I'm not being sexist, but the guy's in the alcoholic and the wife's going through it. We ask the wife to leave. Get your kids, get your stuff, and leave the house. Because if you stay, he will bring you down. If he's not willing to get well, and most families recover from that, but it does take time because of the trauma they've suffered, because they have suffered trauma, and especially if they're not getting aftercare. It's very important that we look after our kids. So, but what an example you are. Absolutely.
I'm trying. Well, and I guess you asked me earlier what I was promoting. I guess mental health, and because it's real, and I've talked to all of my kids about this. It runs on both sides, and if you see issues, then address it, and of all the things that I've dealt with through my life, Dr. Rob, and I've had a lot. I've had a bunch. Addiction's the hardest, and I've been so surprised at how hard this last 216 days has been, and it's been a journey, and the other day in AA, this guy was talking about the honeymoon phase at the beginning of AA, and I turned and looked at him and I said, when does that happen? Because I'm not there yet, and it's been uncomfortable. It's been hard. It's been awkward. It's been challenging, because I'm an extrovert. I'm friendly. I'm social. I
Yeah.
love people, but I was telling a good friend of mine, actually, she goes to AA with me. And I was telling her one day, I was like, but when I was married, I could handle so much stress and I can handle this and I can handle that. And I did all this. And now it's like, I can't handle the slightest little thing without just getting worked up. And, and she said, but Misty, were you really handling it? Because you were drinking through all of that. And when you're drinking, that's not even reality.
Yeah. So
and,
true.
and that's so true, and so, yeah, I mean, it's so true. It's not even reality. So I'm dealing with things sober and it's hard. So,
Yeah. Our emotions are raw. The new
mhm.
feelings are raw. Getting in a relationship sober is raw. All these things that we have to do. We call it a mental injury,
It's hard.
not a mental illness, because we think you can get over it no matter what it is, unless it's excessive brain damage. Of course,
Right.
we're talking about bipolar, we're talking about the depression, the alcoholism, the addiction, stuff like that. Is that a lot of people think it's the alcohol. It's not the alcohol. Alcohol's got 1% to do with alcoholism, and drugs have 1% to do with drug addiction.
Mhm.
It's what's happening. If we could both just stop drinking and everything would be okay, but that's not the case, because we started drinking and everything wasn't okay.
It's not that simple.
Our lives was horrible, and then come the nerves and the abandonment and the shame and the guilt and remorse that we all carry. So we're talking about, the book talks about psychic change, which in 1939, that's what they called it. And basically what it meant was a change in thought patterns. Psychic of the mind, not cards and tarot cards, psychic of the mind, and a change. It was just a change of mind, but it had to be solidified. So I promised for weeks and weeks to show this video. I want to show you guys watching this at home, and maybe later on the podcast platforms. I want to show you a psychic change. And what happens, a new neural pathway is built whenever I do something that I've never done before. And all neural pathways that I've done will be there, but they might need reintroducing. For instance, riding a bike. If you don't ride a bike for 10 years, you jump on, you need a couple of seconds just to get your balance and know what to do. It's always there. It's the same with addiction. But here you go with alcoholism, because we're born this way. You can't drink yourself and become an alcoholic. We're born. It's hereditary. It's a biochemical disease with various traits added to that. And as soon as we put alcohol in our body, all bets are off. And that's one of the biggest things. Well, if you can just stop drinking for your kids, not the case. We can't do it. And so once these are solidified, so a normal neural pathway, I want to show you something, guys, because this is awesome. This is obviously my research, all of it's my research. But let's say that let's say the brain's here and a new neural pathway is born. Say there for, let's say, driving a car. So every time you get in the car, you don't really have to think about anything. You get in the car, you're in reverse, you're talking to the girlfriend, and you're listening to music as you're backing down the drive, and that's okay, because the neural pathway is there. That's the driving car neural pathway, and there are billions in there. So watch this. When you stop driving a car, this is what happens. The neural pathway for that set of skills diminishes within the brain. It's always there. So when you get back in the car after a year or 2 years or whatever it may be, you have to start all over again, learning that trait. Now, here's the interesting point. Neural pathways for self-sabotage, especially with the alcoholic, are born, but when we get sober, or when we try and get sober and stay away from alcohol, the neural pathway does not go away. Self-sabotaging neural pathways don't go again. So what happens is, why relapse and come back, I start from here with the damage. I do not start like driving a car from there. And that's why when we go back drinking or using, and the first drink were as bad as ever. And that's why. So watch this, guy. This is a new neural pathway being built in the brain. It's absolutely phenomenal. Watch this for a sec, guys. Absolutely fascinating. Let me tell you what happens when them new neural pathways are built for success and self-care and love and all that great stuff. We get into recovery. We need to solidify them. And the basal ganglia, this is where it comes in. The repetition, strengthening, confirms with chaos when we're drinking has to be interrupted, a psychic change. And we have to replace that with good stuff. And as long as we keep replacing it with our work, our fears, our resentments, keep being kind, complimenting people, being the right person. That will never change. So when you hear people go, watch it, you're on a pink cloud, Rob. Yeah, been on a pink cloud for many, many years, and I'm staying on it. I'm not coming off it. Absolutely phenomenal. So what do you do today, Misty? Tell me what we do today. What's your daily life consist of?
I called it my drunk goggles, Dr. Rob. And
I like it.
One day I was driving and stopped at a stop line. I was reading on my AA app, and I had what my sponsor called an awakening, you know, and that's what it feels like. It feels like these glasses have been taken off and the world is clear. You know, it's like regular people have lived like this all this time. This is great, you know. And so anyway,
because we don't know any different. That's the problem. It's like why, especially daughters of alcoholics, they attract the alcoholic who shouts and screams at her, and the relationship ends. Why? Because they've seen that in the house growing up. What else have they compared it to? So we become to think that life is normal. And then when we get well, it's like many people say to me, I took these blinkers off and I've seen the rest of the world for what it is. And if I can live in that crazy insanity that I was in, this world's easy. I can achieve anything I want to achieve. And it's so true. If you can visualize in your head, you can hold in your hand. I'm going to say that again. If you visualize it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. If you have a higher power, and any guys out there that query about God, there's 26,000, just fucking pick one, then your life has become amazing. It really becomes absolutely amazing.
Well, and I told you I grew up evangelical, and there was not a better Christian woman than my mom. I mean, she walked the walk, talked the talk. She had a prayer list, you know, I mean, but we also grew up with a lot of guilt and shame, you know, and I thought God was this big, mad, angry God who was waiting for me to mess up. And every time I'd messed up, and my list was so long, you know, and AA, this is not a plug for AA or God, but they've just been such a huge part of my life that I can't not talk about them. You know, I found more spiritualism and realness in my AA meetings than I ever did church.
100%.
You know, it's crazy, you know, and I was like, these are my people, you know, and I always laugh, and I'm like, a bunch of weirdos in here drinking coffee, and y'all are the weirdest people, but you're just like me, you know. So they think like me. It's bizarre. My daughter and I were talking one time about drinking, and I said, I drink to get out of my head.
Yeah.
And she stopped and she said, well, Mom, that's where we're different, because I drink one, maybe two drinks, and I don't want to get out of my head. And I drink to get away from that.
And a non-alcoholic cannot understand what that's about. I heard a great sentence once, many years ago, and he said, I drink to feel the way you looked, when he was talking to a normal person.
To feel away what?
Shit. I drank to feel the way you looked, because you always look as if you got your shit together. You always got that nice job, and I drank to feel that way you did. But here's a great point, guys. You know this before, I've said it before, but when you have a spiritual awakening and a psychic change, our DNA changes. Why is that important? Because the big book says that the same man or woman will drink again. So we have to change. We have to be reborn, the book says. And you ask any mother with children, there's a lot of pain before birth, reborn. You know, we have to go through this pain, because when we're not armed with the facts about ourselves and our past, which is our greatest asset, no doubt about that, how can we teach other people? Because that's what it's about. It's about passing this stuff on, teaching people. When I say thank you to somebody, dopamine is released into my brain. It's a free drug, guys. So I'm always complimenting people. I'm always laughing and smiling and being that guy. You know, we buried my dad 10, 15 days ago. I don't harp on it.
I'm so sorry.
I have counsels for that. I have my wife. I have close friends to go for that. It's not my public face that I go out, because when I'm out in public, you know, pissing and moaning about how shit my life is right now, I might be the only face somebody sees that's just about to go and blow his head off because of addiction or depression or bipolar. And I want him to get the best chance he possibly can. So that is what it's all around today. Guys, Misty Sutherland is on the show. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back to finish the show off. Stay with us, guys. Take 12 Radio, guys. Monty Man, big shout out to you, geezer. He's over there doing the radio shows, been doing it for about 20, 30, 40 years. I don't know how long. Longest radio show on addiction. Check it out. Take12radio.com. Take12radio.com. Go and give him a listen. And I think I'm still doing a monthly Dr. Rob hour, so watch out for that. Okay, Misty, any messages for other people that are listening right now, want to get their life together?
Well, recovery works if you work it. You know, and all the AA sayings and all the cliche things, it really works, you know, and I don't know, reach out to Dr. Rob, reach out to me, reach out to someone if you're struggling with any kind of addiction, you know. And earlier you said someone didn't have their shit together. Who has their shit together? You know, I mean, who really does? You
I
know, I
know.
mean, that's our addict brain just making us think that everybody else has their stuff together and we do not, you know. And I often say we're all recovering from something, and we are all
Everybody is.
recovering from
And
something.
the only reason why the grass is green is because you're not freaking working on your
You're
own
not
grass.
freaking there.
You're
Yeah.
not watering it. You know, that's
You know,
all it is.
and you asked earlier what I'm promoting, you know, I mean, I've been through a lot of stuff, you know, and so if my voice can help, you know, and if people can look at me and say, hey, she's been through this and she's doing it, then here I sit on 216, days 216, and you know how I've done that. It's just one day at a time. I mean, just take the next right step, and that's what I've done, you know. And I have another shirt that says "Just for today," because I mean, I'm doing it just for today, and so for today I'm sober, and it's all
For those
good. But
guys who are going 20, just for today, what does that mean? It doesn't mean not drinking for today. What it means is
just for
the
today.
hypothalamus, which is at the base of the brain towards the back, it tells alcoholics who are drinking to drink alcohol. It tells normal people to drink water and eat food to survive. Our survival instinct becomes alcohol. That's why we can go weeks or days without eating or drinking water. So once that resets every 24 hours, that's where it comes from. 24 hours at a time, and nothing to do with drinking. How can I live my life now at 12:43, my time, to be the best person that I am? How can I influence? How can I inspire somebody to be a better person? And I think when we're giving back constantly, Misty, that is where we find salvation.
And truly just doing the next right thing. You know, I mean, as simple as that sounds, just staying focused and doing the next right thing. You know, feelings and emotions suck. You know,
Yeah.
and no one likes them. You know, my therapist, I'm always giving him a hard time because I'm like, why do I have to sit in them? I don't like
Oh, yeah.
sitting in them. You know, and sometimes you
Yeah.
have to just sit in that muck until it passes. And
Yeah.
my mom's the death of her anniversary death was October 2nd, and gosh, it was the first time. Well, I did it after rehab, but it was the first time in 16 years I've dealt with all of that sober, you know,
Yeah.
and it's a lot. It's a lot of emotions. So
I remember going
anyway,
to AA and an old guy saying, you know the good news and the bad news about AA? I said, I don't know. He said, the good news is you get your feelings back, and the bad news is you get your
you
feelings
get your
back.
feelings back.
And I'm like, oh, that's just one of the comments has been so true. You know, for
Exactly.
the last, I don't know how long I've been, I don't know my sobriety date. I don't know when I started going to meetings.
It's
I
like
just do what I do.
it's like how do normal people do this all the time?
I know. But we always tell alcoholics or parents that are trying to raise the kids, it's like, oh God, I'm like 2 weeks sober now. You're supposed to be 2 weeks sober, you fucking parent. You've got kids to look after, 2 and 3. You're supposed to. There's no congratulations here off me. You're supposed to be like this. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Don't count the days, make the days count. That's
Right.
just one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got off an old man in some meeting somewhere in the back end of Europe, wherever I was. Because I took my big book and went traveling for about a year, as far as I could go teaching, because I found something that was gold. It was 100% guaranteed. I must admit, 20, maybe 25 years in school, colleges, universities to become the person I am today. But I tell you, the best piece of literature, and I studied Carl Jung, the best piece of literature I have ever read pertaining to the alcoholic and the recovery of is the big book. And first edition, second edition, are public domain. Go out and buy it, use it. You know, I use it with my company. It's the best piece of literature because I'm telling you, them guys knew
They
in
knew.
the
It's crazy.
30s what we only just finding out. The medical fraternity 10 years ago came out with neuroplasticity. Wow, look at this amazing thing. And it was broken down. It's a psychic change. It's a change in mind. We can mold and redirect the brain to what we want to do. And it's so simple. It's so freaking simple.
And you know, you say that on my 6-month sobriety anniversary, my boys and I went and ate, and we were driving back, and it dawned on me that it was the 6 months and mark. And I said, my youngest son is 18 and a senior, and I said, I don't think you understand that whatever many days it was, you know, 85 days is not a big deal to other people, but that's a really big deal to me, you know. I mean, and so what you said is true. That's what you're supposed to be doing, but that's not how I've lived my life for the last 16 years. So it's an adjustment, you know.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing life. Misty, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so
I
much. It was
love
great.
you.
I love
think
you
you are
too.
amazing. I'm still going to stalk you. I mean, follow you. Keep getting that one mixed up.
I'm going to
because
write a book one of these days, Dr. Rob. So
you
here we
have
go.
to. I mean, you just have to. I know
will.
people say that to me.
I will.
But I tell you, you have to, because what an amazing story. I hope we can collaborate somewhere down the line.
I would love to.
We're definitely going to be BFFs for a long time.
Yes.
Well,
I love you
guys,
too.
Yeah.
Thank
you
you.
for joining us, guys. Thank you for being here for both of us. And I hope you enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week with a brand new guest at the same time, breaking through addiction. For now, have a great week, guys. Bye-bye.
Peace.